agenda tonight, if we could flip over one. All right, so opening comments, check-ins. First, we'll start off with check-ins, and then I'll tell you a few new and different things. So let's go around the room. I'm Bruce, N1LN, here for the first time this year.
Brad, WZ4BSS, Hillsboro.
Karen, KD4YJZ, Eflin.
Dave, W4SAR, Efland.
Dave, NA4VY, Cedar Grove.
Dan, KR4UB, Southwest Orange County.
Paul, N2XF from Butner.
Matthew, KQ4ZYW from Mebane.
Thomas, KD4UHB from Carborough.
Dave, K4DJW, Rougemont.
I'm Bob, W4FK, and if any of you showed up last weekend, I apologize. Usually the meeting is right after the DFMA, but this time the DFMA was on the first day of the month, so that's when that happens. I am Hillsboro.
And I had the opportunity on last week's Monday Night Net and also Saturday at the DFMA picnic to sufficiently pick on Bob, because we did have two people that showed up here last week.
Lee, KQ4ZZD from Chapel Hill.
Fred, KN4QBZ. Tim, KC1TWR, Carborough.
Sam, KJ4VWG.
Okay, let me go over to the desk here.
Lori, N1YXU, and on Zoom, I have Neil, KR4VU, Pat, KO4QLU, Charles, KQ4TNF, Ken, KO4DHJ, Mark, KR3AM, and Barry, K2IX. And we just got one more person, so hold on. And Aurora, KN4VXB.
Okay, excellent. And Barry, I have your switch here. I thought you might be here in person, so I brought the switch you got from Pete's inventory.
W4BOH, Wilson, Hillsboro.
KO4GJO, Boyd, Hillsboro.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good group here tonight. And thank you for all of those joining from home. Not many opening comments, really just one. And Randy asked me to give this one KF40. Maybe many of you have attended the Saturday training that we've been doing during the AriesNet. We did not do any 2 weeks ago because it was RARS. This past week, we also didn't do any because a lot of us had other things going on. But we will be getting back to the training. He absolutely said we would be doing that. From a status perspective, the last time, and I apologize for all the mistakes I made the first time that I passed the message along in the ICS 213, but I made up for it in the second time when I made mistakes. So they kind of balance them out. But to that point, though, if anybody would like to try to pass a message or come up with a topic to put into an ICS 213, give it a shot. Let us know, and we will schedule you to do that message passing for the day. It's, the best time to learn how to do something is during training. And, like I said, I believe the first time I did it, when Lori and I lived in Houston, we did a lot of this. We were on site for Hurricane Katrina, on site for Hurricane Rita. Lori was in the Ops Center. I was managing all of the other nets and the folks on campus at the Houston Astrodome. We really knew how to do stuff then. We've forgotten because that's been 20 some years. So we'll learn it again. But one of the things that Randy wanted me to say was that we have had 15 people as a result of the Saturday training that have successfully copied the message and then passed along that message to him using the internet-based ICS 213 form. So congratulations to all of you for doing that. That is really fantastic. Okay, the second thing, at the last meeting, we talked about a new position that we needed to form in the leadership team of the OCRA Club. And that specifically was the CSCSA, and that's the Club Station Call Sign Administrator. And at that time, in the last meeting, we took a kind of a quick vote just to put Dan in office as a temporary interim acting for the month, and that we wanted to actually give everybody the awareness that, you know, we would be doing the vote, which we announced at the last meeting. I also had it in the email that I sent out with the invitation to this meeting. So at this meeting, what we would like to do is have the official vote, unless we have 28 different people, you know, we won't interview everybody. What we're going to say is Dan has been nominated for and has accepted the nomination to formalize him in this CSCSA position. And I would like to get somebody, if we could, to make a motion for the vote. Okay, Karen made the motion. Boyd seconded the motion. If anybody is against Dan taking this position, please raise your hand. It's easier to count no hands than it is to count. Is there a question on the? Got it. Yep. Okay, Lori's going to change the view. Okay, to the room. Okay. By the way, if you don't know, Lori is the director, the producer, the key grip, the editor. What else did I say you were? Okay. So, okay. So anybody in the room other than Dan, that, because I saw his hand going up, that believes he should not be unanimously voted into this position, he's going to get twice as much money now that he's officially in this position. Okay, nothing in the room. Is there anybody on Zoom that is against Dan formalizing this position? Oh, they're off now? Yeah, okay. Well, Wilson's got, yeah. Anybody got their hands up? Okay, so nobody objected, and somebody was holding Dan's hand down, so we appreciate that. And Dan, congratulations, you now have been formally voted in. And I've got to get that terminology, CSCSA, because I keep calling him a SASE. Those of you that do a lot of QSLing, he's not really a self-addressed stamped envelope. He is the Club Station Call Sign Administrator. So, okay, thank you, Dan. All right. Okay, the presentation's coming back up, but I know what's next. So the next part of the program tonight is going to be from Boyd. Boyd is going to talk to us about first aid kits, a home first aid kit, a customized first aid kit. And for those of you in the room, and soon those of you on Zoom, you'll see with the camera. In fact, let me just wander over there and point the camera at the desk. Okay. So those of you on Zoom can now see what Boyd is going to be going through tonight. And when I go sit down, I will fix the camera so you'll be able to see what he's talking about, as well as himself, in one part of the screen, and then, of course, his presentation in the other part. So building a home first aid kit from Boyd. Let me hand him the microphone.
You have the first slide. Okay. There's some things that I found in my research that you just have to take with a grain of salt. Here it says 3 steps to building a home first aid kit, and it lists 5 things. So we'll add the grain of salt on that afterwards. One of the first things I found was classifications by the ANSI, ISEA, some kind of government organization for standards of some kind. They actually classified first aid kits, the containers, into type 1, 2, 3, and 4. based if it's for inside stationary, inside portable, outside portable, whatever. The good thing to know is that unless you're a corporation or an organization that provides rescue first aid services, none of that matters. Getting back to these steps here, one is get first aid training. There are a number of places you can get first aid training, Red Cross first aid classes. Various hospitals will have a class called Stop the Bleed, CPR classes. You want to be able to use the things you decide to put in your first aid kit or that somebody else might have in their kit. You want to choose the right supplies. You want to choose the right size bag. You want to learn to set up your first aid kit and establish a prepared location. For a home first aid kit, I put the first aid kit in the cabinet underneath the bathroom sink on the first floor. Everybody knows it's there. And it's well marked with a big red cross on it, and it's a see-through container. So it's not hard to find since I put the little card on the inside with the red cross that you could see. Next slide. Okay, breaking it down. Who is your intended audience for the first aid kit? There are websites you can go to, such as Adventure Medical, which will have the specifications for all of their first aid kits. You can pick a first aid kit, look at the specifications. It'll tell you the contents of that first aid kit. You're going to want to look and see if it's a family first aid kit. Well, do you have a family of 2 empty nesters and you don't have to deal with a bunch else? You have a family of 4 with 2 toddlers, or a family of 4 with 2 teenagers, Lord help you. So you need to aim the contents of the kit for the audience that you're dealing with. If you've got toddlers or infants, then you're going to want to have some extra maybe pediatric medications, because those are all liquid and it's weight based, and you want to be able to deal with that. It's amazing how the right pink Band-Aid with little sparklies on it can make a boo-boo on a little girl feel a whole lot better, or a camouflage G.I. Joe Band-Aid for a little kid, a little boy. Having some stuff like that when you're dealing with that age can be useful. Anything to help them stop crying sooner. There are Adventure Medical does have a pet first aid kit, and they have a combination human and pet first aid kit. I don't want to get things mixed up between the two. I really don't. The other thing you're going to look at is level of care. The types of things that hikers would have for a one-day hike is going to be different than a group of hikers that are going out for a one-week backpacking trip. The larger the group, the more things you're going to need. The longer the trip, or the longer you're going to be out there, the more stuff you're going to need to bring. And the types of things that you'd bring for a weekend car camping trip in a state park is going to be different than that backpacking trip out in the mountains where there isn't anybody else around to come help. And going through the specific kit contents on websites like Adventure Medical or mymedicalgear.com would be very helpful in getting down to specifics as to about how big a kit you need and what type of stuff you need. Automobile kits. I got a nice big kit that I carry in the trunk of my car. I'm not worried about having to lug it up and down a mountain on a weekend hike, because that ain't going on a weekend hike with me. That's staying in the car. I have, when I did a lot of pistol shooting and went to the rifle range, I had this with a bunch of other stuff on it as well. But this would be in my range bag, and this little red strap would be hanging out of one end on it. So if I needed something at the gun range, there's a tourniquet on here, because anything at a gun range, you're probably going to need a tourniquet for, and you're going to need trauma dressings. You're going to need them fast. And that's not a situation where you want to be having to dig around in your bag, having to get something. So having this sticking out a bag gives you an easy, quick access to it. Some examples of the adventure medical bags. You want to look for bags where you can see what you're looking at. All right. On these two bags, on this one, all the compartments are see-through. I can look in there and see what I need to get to. With this one, the middle compartment's not see-through, but this pocket comes off, and I can take that with me to where I need it if I just need Band-Aids or something. So these are some of the considerations you want to think about when you're talking about a what kind of container for your first aid kit. Typically, first aid kit is going to probably be either blue or red. It's going to have red handles on it, or red webbing or something to indicate it's a first aid kit. On this big black kit here, I've got enough Red Cross stickers to indicate it's a first aid kit. I've got a red shoulder strap on it and red zipper pulls. So that's an indication. A lot of your individual first aid kits that the military uses, you will either see them with red strapping on it, or it'll have your OD green strapping with red marker colored on it. So and usually that first aid kit is for you. So if you get shot, somebody else can quickly identify which pouch is the first aid kit, and there's not a lot of wasted time before it gets used. There are specialty considerations. If you're putting together a first aid kit on a boat, you want something that's waterproof. You can use something like this. This box has an O-ring seal around it, so it's waterproof. 50 caliber ammo box, whether it's plastic or metal, has an O-ring seal around it. I know one guy kept the metal one in the back of his contractor's truck, and he said that was the only thing that held up to getting knocked around with all the equipment he had in there. Harbor Freight sells this one. It's got this little convenient compartment up top, which is not waterproof. But when you go to open it up, there's an O-ring seal around the lid that is waterproof, and you got this handy little tray, which makes it easier to get stuff in and out of there. So that's an alternative. My wife never wanted to keep a first aid kit in her trunk because she says, I don't know how to use it. And I said, well, if you get in an accident and I happen to be with you, I want one in there because I know how to use it. And if both of us can't do anything and an off-duty paramedic stops by, he'll be able to use it. So she said, oh, all right. And then she went out, and the car she picked out was a Mazda MX-5. They say it doesn't have a glove compartment. It does, but they call it a trunk. All right. S- So I got this one, which I'm going to be putting in her trunk. This has a panel I can screw to the wall of the trunk on the inside, so it's not taking up valuable floor space on the trunk. And then this kit unzips and drops down like that. So you can actually get a lot of stuff in this one. So that's a current project underway, and I'm not going to tell her when I put that in her car. It's just going to appear. Of note, tourniquet is on the outside of the kit. You want to have a tourniquet either right on top or on the outside, because if you need a tourniquet, you need it quick and you don't need to be wasting time looking for it. Okay. Two primary types of tourniquets that I've seen. One is Cat 5 or Cat 7 tourniquet put out by North American Rescue. They're either be black or you can get them in orange. It has a turnbuckle that you can snug it up with and a place where it locks in. And then it has a white Velcro thing that flips over and you write down the time the tourniquet is applied. Another tourniquet that I've seen is called a SWAT T tourniquet. It's basically, think of an ace bandage on steroids. They put markings on it. One of them is an oval, and when you stretch it enough that that oval turns into a circle, that's how tight you have to pull it. This is good because it can also be used as a pressure bandage. You can use it to make a sling. There are a lot of other things you can use it for than a tourniquet. Disadvantage to having this as a tourniquet is you need two hands to put it on. So if something happened and you got shot in the arm or got your arm tangled up and it's bleeding real bad, you're not going to be able to put this on with one hand. You can get Army surplus stuff like these two things, and they've just been restocked. This is just a clear little plastic box that some kind of snippers came in, but it has a waterproof ring around it. So I figured that'd make a good little first aid kit. Now, this type of plastic is see-through, but it's also not very impact resistant. Something hits this, it's going to crack, and then it won't be waterproof anymore. Don't go there. If you're putting together a first aid kit for a boat, peanut butter jar. Waterproof, I can see what's in it. You can put a Red Cross on a 3x5 card and stick it down the side, and that would be good in that area where you need for stuff to be waterproof. Can we get the slides back? Desk drawer. Oh yeah. Okay. Level of care. Difference between a first aid kit and a boo-boo kit. Okay. This is a case made for carrying earbuds. It's got Band-Aids, some Neosporin, a miniature Swiss Army knife, which has scissors on it, a little photon light, and a pair of tweezers. But that's a nice little kit that I could put in a briefcase, a glove compartment, whatever. It can be part of my everyday carry, EDC, which just gives you something minor to have for little boo-boos. You can stick that in a diaper bag. I also have at home a little orange box. It's about that size. It's waterproof. It has a nice closer latch, like similar to that. it has a trauma dressing in it. No adhesive tape, nothing else, just a trauma dressing. And I keep that in my file cabinet drawer right by my desk. And the reason for that is because one New Year's Day, about 11 o'clock at night, I was sitting at my desk with some paracord and a brand new pocket knife. And I was trimming the paracord, and I went to set my knife down, and it slipped out of my hand. And I reached down to grab it, pulled my hand back, and said, "No, I don't want to do that." And I reached down, picked it up off the floor, and there was all this red stuff running down my arm. And the only thing I can figure is that the blade inverted on its way down, and I reached down far enough to hit the blade and pulled my hand back. I didn't even feel it. All right. But I had a nice 3/4 inch cut on this part of my hand. And I had taken a blood thinner about an hour beforehand. So I grabbed my hand and I'm like, all right, well, I got to sidestep past the couch here and get to the bathroom. And I look down and the blood's dripping down from my hands. I'm going, okay, I got to do this quick, right? My wife had just gotten upstairs to bed. And I get to the bottom of the steps. I went, "Susan, I need your help down here now. Don't step in the blood." That made her come down a little bit faster. All right, so I got into the bathroom and got the first aid kit out and got a big dressing on there and got it tightened up and mostly stopped the bleeding. So I had a pressure bandage on it and held my hand up and propped my hand up on the car door while she drove me to the hospital at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. And we get to the hospital, and they had a car accident where they brought members from both families in, and they started fighting, so they put the whole ER on lockdown. So it was a while before the doc got to me to do stitches, and it ended up taking 5 or 6 stitches, and he did them kind of close together because I work a lot with my hands, and I was a respiratory therapist at the time. And he got the stitches in and got it all taken care of. And he says to me, "You're going to want an excuse for the day off, right?" And it's like 5 o'clock in the morning now. And my wife says, "Oh, today's a holiday. He's getting double time and a half. He is not staying home." And I just go like this to the doc, and my wife went out to get the car, and I said, "Give me a script that says I can't wash dishes for 6 weeks." I showed that to her. She said, "Good try." So I always keep one big dressing in the plastic box. I took the packaging off it. I don't even have to rip the paper off or anything, and I can just get that on my hand, and I won't bleed on the carpet anymore. She was more concerned about getting the blood up off the carpet before driving me to the hospital. She's considerate like that. Okay, next slide. Nah. All right. Again, size of the group. Is it just 1 or 2 people? 3 or 4? 10 to 15? 20 to 30? And again, how long you're going to be gone is going to determine whether you get a kit this big or a kit this big. The kit I carry in my car, I've got trauma shears, some hemostats. I also carry stethoscope. But for a kit this big, what's helpful is having things divided. So this is actually a organizer for a woman's purse. You can get them off of AliExpress for about $2 or $3 each. But the advantage is I can put all my little boo-boo bandages and Band-Aids in here. And if I've got some kid that's got a cut finger, I can pull this, take this to the kid and leave that big monstrosity sitting in the car. So I don't have to mess with it. So being able to break things up will help you keep things organized, but you want to be able to have them in such a way where you can see what's where easily. I had one kit. It was meant to be a military looking kit. One quite as big as this, had pockets all around it. If it's not something you use very frequently, you're going to forget which pocket has what in it, and you're going to have to start looking. And usually you'll look through at least half the pockets before you find out what you want. Well, this thing had flaps, and you could open the flaps and pull open some Velcro, and that flap was actually a pocket. And I had Band-Aids in there. But trying to tell somebody else, open the flap, and that flap is a pocket that has Band-Aids in it. After 3 people tried finding Band-Aids and I had to tell them, bring me the stinking kit, I decided to get rid of that and go to something like this where I could see where the Band-Aids were. So you learn by actually trying these things out. Small tool bags could work for a first aid kit. You want either the red bag or the black bag with the red handle. That wouldn't be first choice because there's no red anywhere on it. You can get cases like this that are semi-rigid, which gives the stuff inside it a little bit more protection. I think this was $2 on AliExpress, something like that. You're going to have to balance how durable does it need to be versus how much I want to spend. Okay, a kit from Adventure Medical is going to run you $150 or so for a large group size kit. A military grade trauma kit that's going to be really high durability, you're talking a couple $100, if not $400 to $500, depending how big it is and what's in it. So you're going to have to decide, do I want a bag like this that's the size I need, but do I need something that's durable that I'm going to be using on Molly gear, I'm going to be carrying it around all the time, or is this just going to sit in the trunk of my car until my wife needs it? Do I need to spend that amount of money? I can get a knockoff product for $10 to $15 that's going to be the same size. It's going to look just as cool. It's not going to be near as durable. I don't expect it to be. I don't need it to be. Would I use this on equipment if I was a paramedic? Actively? No. I'd get something that was more durable from VanQuest or some of the other better known manufacturers. So you're going to have to balance out how big a bag you need, how expensive does it need to be, and you're going to have to look at what equipment you want. Having smaller first aid kits is an advantage because they can be in a lot of different places. The disadvantage is it's easier to lose a smaller kit than it is one big kit, but they're also easier to carry around. So you need to think about all that. But if you've got kids, you have to make accommodations for having stuff that's the kids' fingers are a whole lot smaller than adult fingers. And the Band-Aids that I hated when I was an adult with trying to use first aid stuff, I ended up really liking those little Band-Aids with sparklies when my kids were toddlers. Next slide. Is there a next one? Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, that was two websites you could look at for kit contents. Next slide. Okay. There's a guy that's got a web channel called Skinny Medic, the YouTube channel. He was a professional paramedic. He's embedded with both military and law enforcement. And he came up with 9 mandatory items for your first aid kit. First aid kit as opposed to boo-boo kit. Okay. Trauma shears, tourniquet, wound gauze, trauma bandage, NPA airway, which is nasopharyngeal airway, which looks like a soft plastic trumpet. Okay. These are something that you need training to use. The S-shaped oral airways, having worked as a respiratory therapist in a hospital, I guarantee when you go to place that in somebody, they're going to throw up. Unless their level of consciousness is far enough down to suppress their gag reflex. You put that thing in their mouth, they're going to throw up, and that's going to complicate your airway situation. These slide in the nose, down behind the tongue, and will keep maintain an airway without triggering the gag reflex. But you have to have training, so when you put them in, it goes where it's supposed to go and not back into the brain. Trauma shears. Your basic trauma shears look like that. Anywhere from $10 to $20, depending who makes them. Your imported knockoffs, the quality of the steel is not going to be as good. You can get fancy shears like this that fold up. These are knockoffs that look like the Leatherman Raptors. Leatherman Raptors are made out of high quality steel. They're excellent. These are Chinese knockoffs. Quality of the steel is nowhere near as good. These are not going to last as long as the Leatherman would. But I don't work as a volunteer paramedic anymore, or EMT, so I don't need the Leatherman. But the cool factor for these, sitting in my first aid kit underneath the bathroom counter, is just fine. The in between, Skinny Medic on his store website has some trauma shears made by Z Shear, which is just a basic trauma shear, sort of like these, but it's made out of a higher quality steel, and they run about $40. But they will last a whole lot longer than these will. But for $10 or $15, you can get more replacements before you hit that $40 mark. So then again, what are you going to be doing with it? What do you expect of it? If you're one that likes high quality tools, then maybe going at least with the Z Shear, if not the Leatherman, would be something that you'd be more comfortable with. Wound gauze. You want gauze to be able to pack a large wound. If in addition to the regular gauze, you can get quick clot or combat gauze that has chemicals in it that will coagulate the blood and stop blood flow. Those are about $50 each. It's not cheap. Having one in a primary first aid kit might be a good idea. With the medical access we have around here, it might be just as good to have regular gauze in your first aid kit. And then when paramedics get there, if they feel the need for the a gauze with clotting agent, they've got that prerogative. But putting a $50 dressing in each of the first aid kits is a little cost prohibitive, at least on my budget anyway. Trauma bandages, you have your Israeli type bandage where you open it up and unroll it, and it's a roller gauze bandage with the dressing already stitched in place. You just apply it and wrap it up and bandage them. Everything's in one package. And there's some other brands that are available that do the same thing. Your says a survival blanket, your foil type or Mylar type emergency blankets. You could put 2 or 3 of them in a larger kit, and that would be great. They do the cheaper imported ones tend to tear more easily. Your ones that are domestically made, like SOL, Survive Outdoors Longer, those tend to be a heavier duty Mylar, less subject to being torn. Survival blanket, SWAT T tourniquet. Chest seals. Anytime you get an injury to the chest, you're creating a situation where when the patient goes to inhale, they can suck air in either into the wound, or if the lung has been compromised and you blew out a section of the lung, then any air that gets between the lung and the chest wall has no place to go, and that'll just continue to expand to where it can actually start compressing the heart. You'll see tracheal deviation, and that is one of the few genuine emergencies that's recognized in the medical field. Immediate treatment of that is to take a syringe and puncture between the ribs and give that air a place to go. But if you have what they call a sucking chest wound, where you hear air moving in and out, you want to get an occlusive dressing over that, but you need something that's got a one-way valve on it. So when you go to exhale and that pressure increases, instead of collapsing the lungs, that air has a place to go. In a pinch, if you just had a piece of cellophane or something, some kind of plastic, you could tape down 4 sides of it, but leave one corner loose. So when the patient exhales, that air will come out that loose corner that isn't secured. When they inhale, it sucks the plastic down on top of the wound, and you still get that one-way valve effect. It goes back to the old saying, the more you know, the less you need. Having a nice chest seal dressing is great, but then again, they're $30, $40 a pop. But having some kind of roll of cellophane or other sheet of plastic that you could use for that, better than nothing. Grocery bag, duct tape. Well, no, not duct tape, because you need to have one part that's not secured. And you don't have a lot of time to be trying to think of, well, what can I use for that, while they're having a harder and harder time to breathe. Anyway, and then of course gloves. Next slide. So is it going to be stationary or portable? Is weight important? Only if you have to carry it. Specific environmental hazards, durability versus cost. How much of the contents do you need to be able to see when you open it up and look at it? That old first aid I carried in the trunk of my car when I was on the rescue squad in New Jersey, that was basically a tackle box. You open the tackle box and everything opens up, and I could see everything there was in there. And when you close it up, all the little compartments are closed up one on top of each other, so nothing spilled out if it got tipped. Anyway, but being able to have see-through compartments is a great big advantage. Or having a larger kit where you basically have smaller bags in there where you can see what you've got is a help too. Ziploc freezer bag makes a good handy first aid kit for going camping. You just need to make sure it's marked well enough that you don't get it mixed up with your little bag of snacks. And as sure as you send somebody else to get the first aid kit in a plastic bag in your back, they're going to grab the wrong one. If you don't have a card in here with a red cross on it. Next slide. I think I've talked about all a dental kit. You can get a dental kit to add to your first aid kit, which might have Orajel or oil of cloves. So if you have a filling that comes out or a crack a tooth, you'll be able to get something on there to help control the pain until you can get somewhere where you can get some definitive care. They also have, I believe, some kind of wax that you can stuff in there as a really temporary filling. But that might be something you want to look at too. Tape, can never have enough tape. You want to review what's in your first aid kit. Let's say the one in your car once a month. Just look through it. It'll help you remember where stuff is, especially if it's a bigger kit like this. It'll help you remember, well, what's in which pocket. You want to look at when medications are going to expire, especially something like eye drops. You want to check your rolls of tape. If they start getting slimy and don't stick some more, throw that out and get another one. It doesn't matter how many times you go around, if it's old enough, it's not going to stick. Think of those old rolls of electrical tape that you've got in your toolbox that start to telescope on you. Next slide. Okay. Modular approach. A lot of your professional organizations will have a kit that opens up and it's got lots of smaller bags in it, but it's marked airway, IV, wound care, burn care, so they can have things broken up like that. You could do that in a home kit, but just have it broken up with something like this organizer that I pulled out of here, where you can have your boo-boo kit, your medium-sized dressings, and then just bring the whole bag for something larger than that. But breaking it up is an easier way to deal with it that way. You can just open one kit. If all you need is the boo-boo kit, we'll just pull that out and take it and take care of things and put it back when you're done. The other thing you want to do is once you've got your kit organized, it's not a bad idea to make a checklist of what's in the kit and put that in the kit. So if once a year when you really want to assess it, or right before you go on a trip, you can make sure that it's fully stocked and you're not missing something that somebody else took and didn't tell you about. The respiratory therapists had floors divided, lower floors, upper floors at Duke, and they'd get the two senior therapists that were on to carry a code bag, which means you had a bag that was a little bit bigger than this that you got to lug around with you all day, and you had to carry that, and if they called a code to a certain room, if it was in your area, you had to beat feet to that room with that bag and see about what kind of airway emergency they had. They determined that respiratory, because they were out on the floor doing things, could usually get to a code a lot faster than anesthesia could because they were coming from OR. And there's even though you were supposed to check the contents of your code bag first thing in the morning, there's nothing like having a guy open his code bag and say, "What the heck is this?" and pull out a submarine sandwich from Subway. And the supervisor says, "You know what that means?" And he says, "What?" He says, "It means you didn't check the code bag this morning." Don't blame the guy that left the sandwich there because he didn't get lunch. You didn't check the code bag first thing in the morning. Luckily, that was not me. Next slide. Checklist, replace contents. I'm doing good for going over the stuff before I get to the slide. All right, next slide. Okay, we did that. Checklists. You can get a lot of information online. There's a time-oriented evacuation list that has what to get if you have to leave your house immediately, what to take with you if you've got 10 minutes, if you've got 30 minutes to get stuff. There are a couple of articles. One is how to prepare for an emergency, create a go bag, do a home inventory, lessons from the LA fires. Was a good article. There's 25 things I did wrong prepping for Hurricane Helene. And there was another article, 50 things I did right prepping for Hurricane Helene. You can just Google it and it'll bring it up online. And I've got them listed on the last page as far as the resource stuff. But there are lots of good articles, and all the articles about what to take if you have to evacuate during an emergency, first aid kit is included on that. Usually one of the higher priority items, especially if you've got prescription medications that you take on a regular basis. If you're evacuating for an emergency, you're going to want to add those things to your medical supply. Thank you. Anyway, you're going to want to add things like prescription medications in addition to regular pain medications like Tylenol, ibuprofen. It's a good idea to have hydrocortisone cream, Benadryl, stuff to for allergic reactions to stuff. If you get Neosporin Plus, that has lidocaine in it. That helps it stop hurting quicker, which if you're dealing with a toddler is to your benefit to get that one. If you do a lot of camping, Neosporin is available in either an ointment, which is petroleum jelly based, or cream, which is water based. So if you get the Neosporin ointment, in a pinch, you can rub some of that on a cotton ball. That'll take a spark and will burn just like petroleum jelly. So you've got a fire starter. That might not matter to a family first aid kit, but if you're out backpacking and you have Neosporin cream because somebody else got it for you to put in your first aid kit, you'll be bad mouthing them all the way home. But little things like that can help. The other thing with making a small first aid kit like this size if you take a straw and pair long nose pliers, squeeze the end of it, melt it with a cigarette lighter, and then cut it to the length you want. If you get the Neosporin with the little pointy tip, you can fill that full of Neosporin, pinch the other end and melt that, and then you've got a little single dose of Neosporin without having to go buy more. And you can do a color code and make green Neosporin and red is the hydrocortisone, and use different color straws for different things. But that way you can break it down and make some real itty bitty boo boo kits for keeping in the glove compartment. And that's still going to be cheaper than getting the individual single use packs of Neosporin, which is usually has way more Neosporin than you can put on one cut. Next, that should be it. Any questions? Yes, sir. I have first aid kits from quite a long time ago where they probably haven't been replaced. If it's dry and has not gotten wet, I'm not going to worry about it. Some of your newer dressings might have expiration dates on it. That's up to you. It's got an expiration date. I can't tell you to ignore the expiration date. Better than nothing. Any other questions? Sir.
I'm assuming that somebody might want to hear what I have to say. Mine's over there. You can look at it later. You know, I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so that's an old toolbox that I bought for use on our boat when we had a lake house. And it's such a sorry box that my kids wouldn't use it and got another one. That was 1986, so you can see what a pack rat I am. Anyway, it's painted on top, and it has white crosses rather than red crosses. I took Stop the Bleed, and I highly recommend it. Some really nice nurses taught it, and it was so much fun. I was thinking about going again. Anyway, they were telling me about stick your finger in the gunshot wound to stop the bleeding, and naturally I asked about sterility, and they said, well, you know, if you can get them to the hospital, we'll take care of the bugs, which I thought was pretty good advice. But I cleaned an old sheet and cut up a bunch of squares, and that sort of thing. But there's a tourniquet in there and most of the basics, including a lot of clotting stuff. One thing I would add is about tape. I just hate adhesive tape because I'm old and it pulls my skin off. That net looking stretchy stuff that they put on you when you go to the lab and get blood, that is wonderful. Not only does it not tear your skin off, but you can use it again. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. My kid has a kit. He has one actually in every car. And I said, well, you know, you reckon you'll ever use them? And he said, no, but maybe somebody else will. It wasn't 2 weeks till the kid, the grandson, and his mother were driving 25 miles home from where he goes to school, and they came on a wreck. And somebody was hurt, and they got the kid out, and they were looking all around, you know, thinking about what they were going to do. And a medic pulled up. He didn't have a thing with him. He used the kit.
Okay. One other thing I'll comment on. If you get a Cat 7 tourniquet from North American Rescue, they're going to cost around $35. You can get what looks like the same thing off of the internet or eBay for about $7 each. The thing that you don't want to find out when you go to use it, there's a guy on YouTube that did a comparison of all these different cheap tourniquets, and some of them, when you go to crank down on the turnbuckle here, the plastic turnbuckle would actually break or bend. There were some that had stitching starting to pop out by the time you get it tight enough to use. So you want to be aware cheaper is not always going to be better. Same thing about durability for the kits applies to durability for something like a tourniquet. So there are a couple YouTube videos that actually show comparisons with different one. It would be good to research the product you're looking to buy before you actually get it, or just get one and actually put it on to see. The other piece of advice with tourniquets is if you put one on and the blood flow has slowed down but hasn't stopped, add another one. Put another one on and get that blood flow stopped. Other than that, the Skinny Medics YouTube channel does a lot of after action reports where they have stuff that's been filmed and he goes back and talks through what's being done and what somebody did right and what they could have done better. And that's always helpful to look at, to have that stuff in the back of your mind. I'm done. Here you go.
A big round of applause for Boyd. Outstanding job. I know if you are folks are like me, you've remembered every single thing he said. But some of you that haven't, when we have the YouTube video posted, then you can go through and listen to the YouTube video. We tried to stay on things with the camera for both the YouTube and also for the folks on Zoom, but the YouTube video has a pause. So you can listen, pause, listen, pause. This was an awful lot of very good information. So Boyd, thank you again. Fantastic job. Yes. Okay, the next topic, let me get out of your way here, sorry. What did I just unplug? I don't know where it unplugged. Did I unplug the signal cable? Okay. All right, so yeah, nothing's unplugged. All right, so the next topic is how to emergency start the projector. And Dan and Paul are working on that one. Okay, what you should be seeing on the screen here, those of you on Zoom are, however, advantage of being home for this. The next topic is succession planning, and Fred is going to come up and talk to us a bit about that. But just let me give you some history. We have our board of directors meeting every month, and I always ask for agenda topics for the board of directors meeting. And Fred sent this one in. He said, let me suggest and please add succession planning to the agenda. And thinking that was a very timely topic, I immediately put it on there. Fred kind of kicked it off, which he will do tonight, and tell you what he really means by succession planning. And then we'll get into some examples in the next two sections. So with that, Fred, first of all, I thank you very much for bringing this topic up. And I think the club will also, once they find out exactly what you're talking about. So here you go, sir.
And let me return the compliment and thank you for years of service. Happy trails. You're done. You're done. We have, slide please, Lori. I have bad news. We have to replace 3 officers this year before January of 2026. It said have to, must. We've got to replace the president and secretary because they've reached the term limit of 4 years. FCC requires relicensing of the call sign W4UNC, and Dan will give us a lot more detail on that. But we need to transfer that role, transition that to a new CSCSA. Always get lost in the letters myself. So we have work in front of us. All right, please. And I gave you the handout anticipating a loss of power, and always have paper, and it's here. But I also want you to be able to remember what the plan is. Tonight, I'm making a presentation launching this, and Lori and Dan are going to present their roles as secretary and CSCSA. At the board meeting, we'll do an after action. and decide, is this really working, or do we need to make adjustments and plan, and how do we move it ahead? The next presentation will be in May when Bruce will present the role of president. And the repeater technician presentation that Dan will do on May the 12th. Okay, John will do the, fine. I'll make that change. Then on the 9th, it's a treasurer presentation. We're not replacing Ron. He's already signed up for a 2-year stint. He's got another year to go. But Ron is looking for a deputy. He's looking for somebody to come in and learn how to be treasurer and to make that continuity to roll it forward. Boyd, same way. He's looking for a deputy, somebody that can help him in finding programs and making things move forward. And he'll tell us about that in June. And again, after each meeting, we'll do an assessment. Then finally at field day, or head of field day, Dave will tell us about his role and what he's doing and what he's looking for in terms of a deputy and making that move. So the plan is to recruit and assess candidates. Anybody know a candidate? Yeah, you're all Brennan. Yeah, you're all candidates. Assessed by can do. You have the skills and experience to be successful. There's also the question of will do. You may be able to technically, but do you really want to? And finally, will you fit? And that's something we've given high priority to on the board, to fit the culture long term. So the goal is to present the candidates on the 13th of October membership meeting and to elect the officers in January of 2026. I said there was good news and bad news. I gave you the bad news. The good news is there's no incumbents. You're not running against somebody. Okay. You're not competing with Bruce and Lori. They're gone. So here's a chance to step up. And don't worry about being young. I wish I were. It's an asset. So with that, Lori is going to tell us about her role as secretary. Yeah. Did you bring paper?
Hold it there for a minute. All right. Well, thank you, Fred, for the introduction. And before we start staring at words and you reading and all of that, I just wanted to say, I have 2 goals tonight in front of you. And one of them is going to be pretty straightforward. I would imagine that many of you sitting in the room and many of the folks who are on Zoom either are currently or have in the past been members of boards of different organizations. So you kind of have an idea of what a secretary may do. And we're going to look at that in just a minute. But my second goal is the one that I'd like to spend a little bit more time with. And that is, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, it's really about what Fred was saying last. My goal is to twist your arm, cajole you, voluntold you, get some excitement so that you might want to talk to me and get some more information. Because it's more than, the next slide, it's more than these bullets that you see here. These are some of the bullets that, I think you went too far. There we go. These are some of the bullets that you might typically think are associated with a role of a secretary, and I'm not diminishing the role because these are very, very important. We are a not-for-profit organization, and the minutes of the meeting are critical. We do need to be able to support the fact that our mission is not a profitable one. So every month after this meeting, I put together monthly minutes. I also attend all the board meetings and put together minutes. Those minutes are then approved, reviewed and approved by the board. And once that approval happens, they are available. Now, Dan has been working feverishly on a way that on the website, you will be able to access that information and you will be able to read the PDFs. So we want to make sure that the information is available to you in an easy way. I also need to make sure that the bylaws are up to date and that we know where they are. And also that we know and we can get the articles of incorporation. That is a legal document. I will be honest with you, this last bullet point, I've never been asked to do, but it's one of those asterisks, as requested kind of things. So these are the main responsibilities that are in the bylaws that talk about the secretary. But there's so much more. And if you go to the next slide, this is where I'm going to do my best to twist your arms, cajole you, to get you excited about talking to me and learning more about what I do behind the scenes. As Fred mentioned a couple months ago, this organization passed some changes to the bylaws, and that said that a person cannot hold a position for more than 4 consecutive years. This is my 4th year. So in January, there will be another person who will be the secretary. And while January may seem like it's a long way away, this year has flown already. We will be in the summer and the fall before you know it. And it would be really nice to have somebody or some folks to work with, to show you, to help you understand what the secretary does so that you might want to see if it's something that you would like to do. It's not commitment, it's finding out information. So if you look over on the right, and for those of you on Zoom, I am pointing at the camera and the 2 laptops. I'm looking at the projector, the screen. For those of you who have been part of this organization for, let's say 4 or 5 years, think back to the beginning of the pandemic. Think back to when we did not meet in person and we were meeting on the repeater. Dave was leading those meetings years ago. We started transitioning, and we are now at the point where the model is we have a hybrid meeting. As we know, we're sitting here, we're standing here in this room. We have somewhere around 15, 19 people who are on Zoom. It is a very, very productive way to conduct the meeting. This whole production, and we were kind of joking a little while ago about being director and key grip, whatever the key grip is and all of that, this takes work. And by being part of the board of directors, I and the other members who are part of the group put together the solution. We come up with ways to continue to make sure that OCRA is a viable and growing organization. For those of you who have been on the board before, thank you. Thank you for all the work that you have done because you have brought us to this point. For those of you who are currently on the board, thank you because you are continuing to make this an amazing organization. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to do, we collectively, the board and the members, especially over the last 4 or 5 years. Think about it. It's pretty amazing. So if you're interested in being part of a group that really cares, that listens to each other, we don't always agree with each other, but at the end, we come up with a decision and a plan. Think about being part of the board. The secretary is a fun job. I did say that, didn't I? It's putting minutes together isn't all that fun, I will admit, but I've got it down to a science. But it is really kind of fun being in this whole production part. And we've all been able to influence the way that we do things. We may not do things the same in 2 years. That's fine. You would also have input to the way that things would change. So you can be part of a very vital group and support the communications and visibility. Today we do Zoom. We also post everything to the YouTube channel. We purposely have made that YouTube channel public, and you would be amazed at the number of views that we're getting on some of the information that we post, especially the one where John Green did his refurbishing, on a pretty old radio. That got hundreds of views. So it's really kind of cool that we're reaching even farther. You can also learn some new skills. I've learned a lot about Zoom and some other things, and I'd be happy to share those if you don't know. So now that I have excited you to the point that you want to learn more, and you would love to see if the OCRA secretary position is something that you would be interested in doing, I'm sure you want to know, what should you do next? Let's look at the next and last slide. So what could you do? Well, you could come over and hang out with me during a meeting, and you can observe the back end of clicking your way to happiness to make sure that everything that's recorded is the way it's supposed to be. It's not hard. It's actually kind of fun. You could also maybe get on a Zoom call with me when I post everything to YouTube. Not hard. Kind of cool, kind of fun. You might even find that you could use those skills in something that you do personally or something you do at work. You could also come and talk to me tonight or at another membership meeting. For those of you on Zoom, if you'd like to send me an email, the email address is right there. Just send it to me and I would be more than happy to schedule some time that we can get together, whether it's in person or virtually, because there's a lot that you are not aware of that's fun. And it's amazing to be part of the board. So I will stop here, but I hope that some of the smiles that I'm seeing where I'm trying to smile and get you to smile back at me are not just a reaction, but that you are really interested in learning more. All right. Thank you so much. And I think Fred is going to, or I'm going to. Fred is going to. We are now going to hear from Dan, KR4UB, who is the newly officially elected CSCSA.
Thank you. And I'm going to tell you why I would like to be replaced with the coming up elections at the beginning of the next year. First of all, I'm going to use the old term a little bit. I got to think about how am I going to open this conversation? And I went to the dictionary to look up what is the definition of a trustee. I want to use that old term again rather than the acronym. And it says a trustee is an individual person or member of a board given control or powers of administration of property in trust to administer it solely for the purposes specified and an ethical obligation to act in the best interests. That's what that is. This is also the easiest job to do. And I'm going to convince you of that now, right now. First thing, let's go to the next chart. Okay, once a year, you have to log in to the Southeastern Repeater Association database. And let me say what that is. The FCC defines a band of frequencies that we can use as amateurs. But when it comes to repeaters, they don't say what exact frequency you use. The reason that needs a lot of work to do it and do it well is all repeaters have a footprint. You don't want two repeaters too close together to where they actually interfere with each other in that operation. That's what Sarah does. A year or so back, we did some radio topographic mapping of our repeaters. They do that when you apply for coordination. Where are you? What kind of power are you going to be using? antenna height and whatnot. And they do the calculation, say, is there a frequency available that will coordinate for that location that does not interfere with other users? And on this job, you don't have to define the power or the antenna height or the location. There are people, and actually a growing team of our repeater builders who will do all that work, say, here's the information. All you do is take it and log into Sarah. And if it's new or changed, that's an application for coordination. You put that in and they will tell you, does it coordinate or not? Once that's done, once a year, then you just log in and say, we're still here. The repeater's still in the air, is still operating with the same parameters, and we're certifying that that's true. And they say, okay, you continue to get to use that frequency. Now, one thing Sarah has done that the FCC has not really done yet, and is a bit of a problem, if the trustee, and I'm going to use that term, if they pass away while holding the club's license, due to some issues that came up with vanity license club call signs, they put rules in place about a methodical process as to how that call sign that those repeaters are operating under will pass on to another person. But that license, first of all, whoever the trustee was, as soon as the FCC gets notification by a death certificate or through the Social Security Administration that that person is deceased, that license is canceled and backdated to the date of death. Now, it raises a little problem. What do you do with the repeaters that are on the air? They no longer have a valid license to be operating under. So for that reason alone, and my age, it is don't die. What don't die is one of the other requirements. Didn't put that on chart, but that's one of the reasons I really want to pass this on to someone else. Okay, someone younger. Basically, so far as notifying the FCC when there are changes, that's very simple as long as the trustee's alive. That's a Form 610, Charlie, that the club has to sign a part of it because, like in this case, it is a club call sign. I can't unilaterally change anything about that call sign without the club's permission. So it's a joint effort now. It wasn't always that way, but it is now. So that's a simple process of filling out this one-page document, getting the signatures on it, and it goes through, actually it goes through the VEC process in a way to the ARL and then to the FCC. Well, that takes time, and they built a 30-day window in there where deceased, they won't act on it. So you've got at least a minimum 30-day there. You got repeaters on the air. What do? Shut them down? And or if they're ground mounted, someone could go there, change the call sign on it. But the one up on the tower, it can be changed, but it's a little bit trickier and risky to do that. And that's the whole situation. I want the club, by transferring this, to avoid that happening. Okay, let's go to the other thing that person acts as is the primary control operator for that repeater in the case that if major repeater violations are occurring on a repeater. What you would do, document it, report the issue to the board. The reason that's important is the board and OCRA Incorporated is the owner of that private property. This is not a position where you would find yourself acting alone. I would highly recommend anyone interested in finding out a little bit more about this, go read on the OCRA website the mission statement, that opening statement that says what OCRA is chartered to do, not only by the IRS, by being a 501c3, but also the FCC. It says basically our funds and property can only be used for statement purposes stated in our charter. That right there narrows down the possibility of other situations that might be desirable happening. The other thing is if you go look at the frequency listing, again, this is boilerplate on the website that otherwise I wouldn't encourage anybody, hey, you got to go read this stuff. But this is one case, all this boilerplate work has been done. If we ever get a situation, we're prepared to handle it. And it is a team effort that would handle it. The last thing is the code of conduct. Go take a look at that. We consulted with like 20 different clubs, what they had done, read a lot of FCC regulations, things that went to court, and came up with a good statement there. So that kind of work has already been done for you. And I would say, lastly, this is truly a team effort. And I would say we've only had, ever since that OCRA repeater's been on the Channel 4 tower, I'd say one significant situation I would call was major. And we were shutting the repeater down. There are people in this room that immediately came to, we basically were standing watch to shut it down if the incident occurred. There are keys to the repeater, passwords, control commands. And I'll say this, there's some tricks built in that repeater to discourage certain types of turn off the feedback that this person is getting attention. I won't go into that. That's kind of held by this team who does that. But there are procedures there and tricks in the code to assist in that process. Basically say, one situation in 28 years, that's not a bad, and I would say thank you all. Because the other thing I've noticed for a repeater, where you've got a group who uses it and they really use good exemplary practices in doing it, it sets a expectation level that alone seems to keep away anyone who might have other intentions. It really works. So that's it. This is a pretty simple role. Going back to the things that Fred meant on his chart is you need to be, it is a position of responsibility. I've found it to be a fun. Anyone who steps into it, say, is stepping in a position of even more trust by your peers in what you're doing on behalf of the club. So what are the next steps? Again, talk to me, get together. I'd say perhaps start joining a couple board meetings just to kind of see and kind of get the process, because that's where we get together and this teamwork for whatever issue facing us is addressed. That's it. Again, it's the simplest job for a good candidate.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. I remember the most recent incident, which might be the only incident. Dan called up and said, hey, I'm going to give you something that you need to keep secure. And he gave me the two codes, three codes, I think, one to turn it off, one to turn it on, and then the secret code, but he won't talk about and I won't talk about. But it is a very important role. Even though it is easy, it's a very important role, and we really would look forward to somebody coming forward. Okay, next slide. Oh, look at that. That pretty much does it for the evening. Next meeting is May 12th. We'll hear some more presentations about the success planning. Boyd has been putting together the programs. I don't remember what the next one is. Sorry, I should have put a slide. Right. Okay. So with the hurricane season coming up, part of the discussion we had at one of the board meetings was generators. So Boyd's working on trying to get somebody from maybe Generac to come in and talk to us about generator safety, where you really don't want the generator sitting in your kitchen floor, running hooked up to that outlet, exactly, or backfeeding the power, right? But anyway, so we do have some really good programs coming up. That's it for tonight. If there's any questions, either here or on Zoom, except from Wilson. No, go ahead, Wilson. Wait, let me get over there with the microphone.
This is a radio club. I want to remind you of that. I'll do it. Since it is a radio club, I'll bring out a radio. We don't have a picture. The really strange thing about this radio is that I paid money for it. at RARS. This is very typical of something that somebody would have made anytime from the 50s on. It's a little QRP transmitter, capable of about 5 watts. It has 5 tubes in it. They're all audio tubes from portable radios that run on 1.5 volt filaments. And if you don't know, I could tell you about filaments someday. And some batteries for high voltage. Of course, you can run on power supplies too. Anyway, one little oscillator and 4 little power amplifier tubes for 5 watts. And I love figuring out things. I don't know if you ever heard me talk about some of the big things I have, which people made, which never worked. So I have this hobby of radio forensics. This thing has a variable frequency oscillator, about 80 meters to about 40 meters. The trouble is it goes so fast that you can't begin to set it on a frequency that you would want to use. Just touching the knob puts it all out of whack. And the tuning capacitor and coil and capacitor and the final amplifier form a tuned circuit. And of course, they have to resonate at the frequency where you want to operate. The forensic thing about those is that they will tune almost up to 40 meters and they will tune almost down to 80 meters, but they won't work on either one. So if you want to work 5 megahertz, 60 meters, where you almost have to have crystal control, or at least a very good modern VFO, this would get there, but it'd also probably get you a little letter from the FCC, but you'd wind up talking to the Air Force or the CIA or somebody like that. Anyway, you know, it's hard to get people to spend time on things now. This would take, if you started this after dinner and worked on it till bedtime, you could probably finish it in 10 days, something like that. There's some metal work. It has a little case that's commercial, but all this interior metal is things that people kind of cut and drill and stuff like that. So I thought you might get a kick out of a semi-antique, and I'm not talking about me. Okay. The questions later if you like.
Thank you. Yeah, Wilson also bought a receiver tonight from Dave. Dave brought some of this stuff. He took to RARS, and Wilson bought a not quite the same vintage. I would think the Heathkit GR81, I think that's what it is probably, yeah, I'd say late 50s, early 60s. I had a GR91 that I got in 63. So, and that was new in 63. So, yeah, there you go. Okay. Any other questions, comments, whatever? Can I make a comment about you, sir? So a few weeks ago, we had a discussion about inventory management and stuff that we have in the club and what do we got that we have to keep track of. And Dave said that he has some stuff that he hasn't completely inventoried yet. And it was donated to him, and in turn to be able to sell that stuff and then donate the proceeds of that sale to OCRA. And I was not able to go to RARS this year, but many of you did, and Dave went to RARS this year. And I probably will be correct in this next statement. If not, those of you that were there and can prove me wrong, please do. I think Dave sold more than all of you did. I don't know if all of you put together, but any individual one of you, Dave is, okay, yeah. So Dave has, and I will let him tell you the number, folks. Hang on a minute. Let me give him the the microphone. You don't have to get it to the number of cents.
Okay. Well, I sold a little over $700 at RARS itself, but some of the donation stuff was so nice, I decided to purchase it myself. Yeah, so there's a check for $1,200 coming to the club treasury. So, yeah. And I've got, except for the stuff I want to keep, I've gotten that stuff out of my house. There's more there.
Yeah, if anybody's interested, there's more back available. But I think that is fantastic. A $1,200 donation to the club treasury. Treasury. And Ron, I know you're not here tonight, but you can add that to your next month forecast. I know you're on Zoom. Okay, with that, if there's, oh yeah, if anybody on Zoom has a comment, Lori's watching him now. We really couldn't watch him. Yeah, go unmute and go ahead and bring it up. Okay, nothing. All right, folks, thank you all very much for coming. We will see you May 12th, and enjoy.